Still to come, move over Gen Xers make room for the millennials, while we're looking to the newest generation to get the job done when Business Unusual continues. Over the past decade, growth in technology revolutionized business as we know it, even made us think for a moment that it had revolutionized the economy. But the so-called new economy has faded, and a new generation of tech wizards is waiting in the wings. They're the first generation to grow up with tech speak as their first language, the digital generation. They could leave Bill Gates and his counterparts in the dust. Forbes ASAP is a quarterly publication put out by Forbes magazine that tracks the tech industry. Staff reporter Michael Boland has been following some of these young revolutionaries, and he joins me now from San Francisco. Welcome to the program.
Thank you, Amanda.
It's an interesting concept that there's a whole generation of people for whom technology is a first language. How does that make them different, do you think?
Well, it's interesting. I mean, they are the first generation to have grown up digital, as we say in our feature article. And what this means basically is they've never known life without computers and the internet. And basically that just makes them a lot more savvy. They know computer language, programming, things like this, almost as second nature.
Which leaves them free, presumably, to focus their minds, their creativity on some other stuff. One of the things that struck me as interesting you deal with in the article is they're going to fill some of the holes in the digital revolution. In other words, they're going to go back and fill in some of the gaps we've missed. Do you think that this is going to be an era where there's a lot of that going on, or are we going to advance in new ways?
Absolutely, Amanda. I think in a lot of ways they've learned from the mistakes of their older brothers and sisters, the dot-com generation. And in learning those mistakes, they have seen what has gone wrong, and they want to go back and fix technology. You know, as they see technology as second nature, it's kind of like they've almost gotten bored with it, and they want to move on and kind of bridge the gap between the analog and the digital worlds, and even start to break new ground and go into other types of fields of technology and build more complex machines such as robots, which is another thing we go into in the article.
Well, Michael, that's one of the things that you talk about in the article. These guys have physical, not digital solutions.
Yes.
Robots, obviously, one area. You've got, I mean, these kids, you hate to even single out a few of them because they're
Sure.
incredible. But a couple of sisters who have come up with ice crawler. Tell me about that.
Yes. They're a pair of identical twin sisters from Anchorage, Alaska, who built an ice crawler, is what they call it. And it's basically a robot which travels across the ice in areas of the country where lakes freeze over, and it's tethered by a rope, and it includes a camera and a few other things that can go up to a place where someone has fallen through the ice and rescue them and pull them to safety. And this is a perfect example of the way that these kids are thinking. They're thinking in real terms and building things and engineering solutions to real-world problems.
And meanwhile, that's not something that somebody in San Jose, California would likely dream up.
Exactly, but I mean, the area of the country where they live, that's a big problem. People that fall through the ice in frozen lakes, and that's a problem in certain parts throughout the country. And they've actually met with a number of U.S. search and rescue teams who have expressed interest in taking on their robot and you know, using it.
One of your kids, one of the kids profiled is a 13-year-old with a web design company, 6 figures.
Yes.
Tell me, I mean, you refer to the older brothers and sisters of the dot-com era. A lot of
Sure.
those older brothers and sisters got rich and
Yes.
got out before everything came to earth. Did these kids expect to get rich?
Yes, I mean, it's if you look at all of the kids on this list, they all exhibit a desire to help people and come up with real solutions to help people, but you can't rule out their entrepreneurial fervor. You know, the capitalism that, you know, is the basis of our economic system, they're very much in tune with that. They definitely want to patent some of their inventions and make money, and that's definitely part of it, yes.
Now, one of the things, I think maybe this is the thing I found most interesting about the whole article, and it's a fascinating article, is the extremely bright young person who says, I don't really like the internet. There's too much going on.
Yes.
What do you make of that? What does that say about the internet?
Well, I mean, it's kind of like what I said earlier. They know this technology so well, it's almost second nature to them, that in some ways they're even abandoning it and moving on to other things and kind of looking more towards what's concrete. The robot builders exhibit that. Not only that, but these kids really have a sense of reality and see that a lot of the information in cyberspace comes from unknown sources, and some of it can't be trusted, and it's such a vast area of information that it's hard to find something out there that's real. And I think that is exemplary of what these kids are thinking. They're trying to find things that are solid and have substance.
So we watch them to see what the next wave is?
I think so. I think what's interesting about these kids and what's quite appropriate in the way that they're thinking is the fact that there are going to be some major physical challenges that fall into their generation's collective lap. Things like the U.S. transportation infrastructure and pollution and things like this, that when they take the helm, these problems, like they have been growing, will come to a point where they're going to need thinkers like these to do things like that. So I think in the next 40 years... Yeah, exactly.
Michael Boland, we're going to leave it there, but thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, Amanda.
Michael Boland, Forbes ASAP.
Local headlines next for some of our folks, and then for others, find out why a little tinkering could brighten the future of some youngsters. Tech correspondent Daniel Sieber will explain why building a robot rather than a treehouse is not a bad idea.
Welcome back. Now, the tech bubble has burst on one generation of inventors and entrepreneurs, but that's not stopping the next one from drumming up some pretty impressive hardware. Forbes ASAP took a look at some of tech's up-and-comers in its latest issue. And I had a chance to speak with a young inventor and a Forbes editor. And I asked them if kids across the country are interested in the idea of making things work.
It tends to be, you know, at Forbes ASAP, we also are publishing our first annual high school All-America list of high school students who have not just technical competence, but really have a common goal, which is to, I mean, it's almost a cliche, to change the world. But in this case, they're inventing things, and we say physical things, to change the course of, to make the world a more hospitable place. So that's the kind of the common goal that these kids tend to share.
Great. Now, Caroline, tell me about this robot. How did you and your team go about building it exactly?
Our team is actually 50 members, and we go about building our robot by breaking off into groups, and each group of about 5 or 6 students specializes in one part of the robot, whether it be making the wheels and the drivetrain to make it move, or making an arm, or making some sort of accessory that plays that year's game. And then we have 6 weeks, so we start by brainstorming, and then we draw final sketches, and then we start prototyping out of wood, and then we finally make it out of metal and hope that it works.
And have you always been interested in this type of science or robotics and technology?
I really began to get interested in technology and this sort of engineering type of thing when I was actually in middle school and in 6th grade, and when we took the industrial technology class in 6th grade was when I really started getting interested in it. In elementary school, I was more interested in art and playing sports and things that my parents kind of pushed me more into, but it was only until when I got into middle school I really got exposed to this field at all.
Now, what about graduation? Have you thought about what you want to do in the future after you get into this type of work?
I've thought a little bit about what I want to do in the future. I mean, it'd be really great to be like a research engineer, go into some sort of engineering, but I'm also considering something in business or something to that extent of entrepreneurship.
And actually, one of the other kids that Forbes looked at in this, and one of the other inventors, created a glove that converts sign language into text on a portable screen. So some amazing young minds coming up in science and technology.